Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're going to be reviewing Beneath This Crown by Reality Grey. So we've listened to this album constantly, non-stop throughout the entire week, and I guess I'll take the floor saying it is a good album. I generally enjoyed it when I'm listening to it. I just generally feel like there isn't much to say about it at the same time, and I found that kind of weird throughout my experience throughout the week. I will say this, fantastic to put on as background music. I think the band fills the space really well, and because they're very riff-centric, you kind of catch little bits here and there if you're working on something. But I kind of found on focused listens I'd enjoy it, but I didn't really find much about it that really stood out as exceptional to me, even though I was enjoying what I heard.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of feel the same way. It's good. It's a good album. I enjoy listening to it. Didn't get bored of it. But yeah, like T Fish just said, if you really try to look for something that stands out or something that sounds kind of fresh, you probably have trouble finding stuff like that on this album. It does sound kind of run of the mill, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Saying run of the mill sounds almost insulting, or like we're putting it down. But all that really means is that it's standard. It's standard. It's if you're looking for a melodic death metal album,
this is a good one to
pick. You're gonna get it with this, right?
Yeah.
The problem that I have with that is that, I say this about a lot of genres, so maybe it's just metal in general, but specific genres become oversaturated, and I feel like melodic death metal is one of those genres where there's just so many bands that kind of have a very similar flavor with minor nuance differences, like slightly different vocals because of an accent, or a slightly different guitar tuning, or maybe some throw in a synth, or maybe some throw in an orchestral element or something like that. This band doesn't really do a lot of any of that kind of makes them stand out amongst the rest, this huge pool of bands that kind of sound very similar. So that is a fault, but it doesn't mean it's bad, and we gotta make sure that we mention that in that way, because we don't want to make this album sound like it's not good, because it does have some interesting songs and some notable parts that are worth mentioning.
I mean, I will say, Preachers of Hatred, I mentioned as one of my favorite songs last week. It still is. I like that song a lot. I like Daybreakers a lot. Dreaming is really good. There are songs on this album I enjoyed. I felt the first chunk, from the very start to Daybreakers, a very strong collection of tracks. Power Blast wasn't bad, it just kind of wasn't as good, so it kind of felt like a little bit of a letdown just from how good the album was before that track. But Multidimensional Hollow was pretty good from there, but it's there are some tracks that I couldn't really pick anything out about to really stand out in my head, like The Fury. I'd have to listen to that again to know which one was that again. Now, I know we mentioned regarding the title track last week, the album, this feels kind of like it should have been a closing track, and every time that song came on, I kind of thought to myself, this would be a really good spot to end the album. However, the last two tracks, Indelible Stains and The Void, didn't really ruin anything. I'm thinking it's fine the way it is. I just think perhaps maybe the title track could have been moved to the end.
Yeah.
Because I think it is still a really good album closer. I feel like
I agree.
It would have fit there really well.
I totally agree, and I mean, I wouldn't doubt it if somebody came and told us that Undeniable Stains and The Void were bonus tracks, and maybe Beneath This Crown is the actual album closer, but we had no way of telling that. Power Blast. Let's talk about Power Blast song number 6. So in my first impressions, it was my lowest rated song. It was the song where the album kind of took a big dip for me, and everything else kind of fell flat after that. In my first impressions, I thought it was disappointing because the title was misleading. This is probably one of the only times on this channel's history where my lowest rated track at first impressions became my favorite song throughout the week, because Power Blast is fucking sick. It is the best song on the album, in my opinion, and it's strongly due to the riffing. That's basically it. The riff power on that song just hits me the right way. I love Power Blast. It's a great song. You mentioned Preachers of Hatred. I also really like that song. It was one of my higher rated tracks in the first impressions, and it just stayed up there. But just the frantic pace, the pitch harmonics they throw in there, it felt like when the album starts, when that song hits, it feels like they just turn it on. It's going good until that point, and then they just go, no, we're cranking it to 11. I love that. And then Beneath This Crown, which we just talked about as well, is another highlight track for me. And I do feel like if that was the last song on the album, it would have just been a really nice, like swan song to cap the album off. Just because it's just melodically very nice, instrumentally overall it's very nice, and just sonically sounds like a very good song.
You know, I think if you listen to, like, when you get to Preachers of Hatred and then Daybreakers, like you said, those are two of my favorite songs in the album. Honestly, I feel like those two songs give you a really good idea as to what this album generally sounds like. Like those two together. Because you have the crazy heavy stuff with Preachers of Hatred, and you have the really nice riffing and melodicism with Daybreakers. And they're like back to back too. So that kind of just encapsulates the album as a whole. So that's a good part of why those songs, I guess, are my favorites on the album. Or some of them.
All right, let's rate Beneath This Crown. I guess I can go first. 13 tracks, and honestly, I think if you were gonna pick highlights, you could probably find 3 or 4 that really stand out to you. The rest of them are good, but very average on a plane, but not bad in any way. So it's gonna get a decent score from me, but unfortunately it can't get a toe tag. I'm gonna give it a 6.5.
Alright, well, for me, I think this album is overall solid. It's well performed, well produced. There is a lot of interesting stuff in there, and I agree with you. You can pick out some really shining moments, but overall it does feel pretty standard as far as melodic death metal goes. But I do still think overall it is a strong album, so it's going to get a 7 from me. So a 6.5 from Vile and a 7 from me. Those are some pretty good scores. Remember to check out Beneath This Crown, check out Reality Grey if you haven't already. The album has come out this year, about a month or two ago, so it's been out for a decent amount of time. Anyway, guys, that's all we got for you today. Remember to like the video if you liked it. Comment, tell us in the comments below, what do you think of this album? Do you agree or disagree with our scores? We'd love to hear your guys' opinions. Subscribe if you guys are new. I'm TV Fish.
And I'm Vile Self.
And keep the horns up.